A billionaire's daughter walks into Judge Caprio's courtroom believing money, privilege, and her last name can bend every rule in her favor. She thinks she's untouchable. She thinks respect is optional. And when the judge questions her behavior, she fires back with a line so arrogant, the room freezes. "You're just jealous of my lifestyle." This is the dramatic courtroom story of Madison Vale, the 19-year-old heiress who arrives expecting praise, immunity, and very important person treatment. She's the princess of a tech billionaire, raised in a world where consequences never reach the gates of her mansion. But today, she faces a man who cannot be bought, rushed, or disrespected, Judge Frank Caprio. What begins as a simple speeding case spirals into one of the most shocking confrontations ever told in this courtroom. Madison's entitled attitude pushes boundaries, the truth behind her behavior comes to light, and the judge delivers a message so powerful it echoes far beyond Providence. This is the story of arrogance, truth, justice, and unexpected redemption. Madison Vale walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom as if the entire building exists for her alone. 19 years old, wrapped in a white Chanel blazer, a glittering Louis Vuitton mini bag resting in the crook of her arm, and Gucci sunglasses still on her face even indoors. Dramatic music swells. Her platinum hair falls over her shoulders like a curtain of money, and her steps echo in rhythm with the entitled calm she carries everywhere she goes. She's late, again, and for her, lateness isn't a mistake, it's a statement. To Madison, punctuality is for people who have bosses, people who have limits, people who live everyday lives outside her bubble of luxury. She glances around the quiet courtroom, annoyed she even has to be here. Her iPhone in one hand, iced latte in the other, she scrolls through messages from her friends, complaining about old people rules and boring court nonsense. Even now, she can't be bothered to look up. Her charge today is a simple one: reckless speeding in a school zone. A charge that should make any teenager nervous, humble, or at least somewhat apologetic. But Madison Vale is not any teenager. She's the daughter of billionaire software mogul Charles Vale, a man whose name carries weight in boardrooms around the world. A man Madison believes can reset any mistake with a single phone call. She has grown up watching doors open without her knocking, watching people bend before she whispers, and watching consequences vanish before they reach her. Today, as she takes her slow, almost mocking stroll to the defendant's podium, she expects the same magic to happen again. Judge Frank Caprio studies her calmly. His courtroom has seen disrespect, fear, heartbreak, anger, and desperation, but rarely has he seen an entrance quite like this. Madison finally looks up and tosses her sunglasses onto the podium like she's dropping keys for valet parking. Her latte cup lands beside it, sloshing slightly, and she does not apologize. She doesn't even notice the brief gasp from the courtroom audience. For the first time, Madison makes eye contact with the judge, and with a bored sigh she mutters a complaint about being inconvenienced. Not loudly, not clearly, but with enough attitude to shift the air in the room. The judge asks her name. Madison tilts her head, almost offended by the question. She states it with the tone of someone expecting applause afterward. She waits for recognition, for admiration, for something that confirms the world works the way she thinks it does. But Judge Caprio simply nods. That lack of reaction stuns her more than anything else. She's used to last names carrying power. She's used to adults stumbling over themselves to show respect, and for a brief moment, a flicker of disbelief crosses her face. She brushes it off quickly, rolling her shoulders as if she's too relaxed to care. Then the judge asks the reason for her speeding. A simple question. Madison responds with irritation, dismissing the seriousness of the charge as if it's a parking ticket. She claims she was in a rush, says she's always in a rush, then shrugs like rushing is a privilege others should understand. She laughs lightly, as though speeding past a school at nearly double the limit is an adorable quirk, not a dangerous act. The courtroom shifts. People sense the rising tension. Judge Caprio gives her a small window to show sincerity, accountability, or even a hint of maturity. But Madison sees the moment as something else entirely, another chance to prove that she is untouchable, another stage to display her confidence, another room full of people beneath her pedestal. She leans back slightly, smirking, as if waiting for the judge to get to the part where he dismisses everything. Around this moment, a question arises in the minds of everyone watching. How far can arrogance push a person before reality catches up? Madison begins explaining a lifestyle. Lavish, fast-paced, non-stop. She mentions parties, trips, and business-class flights taken for fun. She treats the courtroom like a stage for her own biography. The more she talks, the more the judge realizes this isn't simple arrogance. It's a life without boundaries, built on the idea that consequences are optional. She tosses in a comment about how traffic laws aren't meant for people with real schedules, another about not having time to crawl through school zones because kids walk too slow. The room stirs with shock and disbelief. A mother in the back presses her hand to her mouth. A man shakes his head. Even the officers by the door shift uncomfortably. Madison doesn't notice, or maybe she does and simply doesn't care. The judge begins asking firmer questions. Questions that require genuine answers. Questions that highlight the danger she caused. Madison sighs dramatically, glances at her phone, and rolls her eyes. Her impatience grows. Her entitlement sharpens. Finally, with an exasperated scoff, she fires a line that breaks the room's stillness like shattered glass. "You're just jealous of my lifestyle." A collective gasp rises from the benches, spreading like a wave. Courtroom gasps, even the officers blink in shock. It's a sentence that carries no hesitation, no awareness, and no fear. A sentence spoken by someone who has never once considered that her words might have weight. Judge Caprio does not react, not yet. His calm expression remains unchanged. But something has shifted inside the courtroom. Respect collapses, patience thins, and the judge leans forward slightly, preparing to speak. It's at this moment, a moment thick with tension, that the story takes its turn. Before the judge can respond, an unexpected voice rises from the back of the courtroom, shaking Madison's confidence for the first time since she walked in. Someone who has followed this case closely, someone who knows the truth behind the speeding incident, someone who has been waiting for the right moment to speak. Who is this person, and what will their testimony reveal? But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. A quiet rustle sweeps through the courtroom, as every head turns toward the source of the voice. From the last row, an older man stands up, nervous, trembling slightly, but determined. His name is Daniel Brooks, a soft-spoken school janitor with worn shoes, tired eyes, and a folded piece of paper clutched in his hand as if it contains every truth he's been waiting to share. Madison raises an eyebrow, annoyed that anyone would dare interrupt her moment. She crosses her arms, shifting her weight with impatience, as though this entire courtroom is wasting her morning. Daniel steps forward, stopping behind the rail. His voice shakes as he addresses the judge. He explains that he works at the elementary school near where the speeding incident took place. He tells the judge he was there, standing outside that morning, guiding children across the walkway when Madison's BMW flew past at a speed that made him jump back in fear. The room tenses. Judge Caprio asks him to continue. Daniel's hands tremble as he unfolds the paper. He explains that it's a statement he wrote after witnessing the event, a detailed account describing how Madison's car veered slightly when she reached for something in the passenger seat, how the wind from the speeding car made children stumble, how he yelled for them to stop, and how Madison didn't slow down until she was almost a block away. Madison scoffs, shaking her head. "This is so dramatic," she mutters under her breath. The judge's eyes sharpen. Daniel pauses, gathering courage. Then he shares something no one expected. A child tripped on the curb because of the sudden panic caused by Madison's speeding, scraping her knee and bursting into tears. The teachers rushed to help her. Meanwhile, Madison never looked back. For the first time, the weight of her actions hangs in the air. Madison rolls her eyes again, but this time there's a flicker of uncertainty beneath her expression. She doesn't understand why this matters so much to everyone. In her world, minor problems are fixed with minor money. As Daniel continues speaking, his voice grows steadier. He talks about how he works 2 jobs to support his family, how parents trust him to keep their children safe, and how that morning shook him because he realized he couldn't protect them from everything, especially from someone who thinks rules don't apply to her. A soft gasp ripples through the audience. Madison shrugs, unimpressed. "I didn't hit anyone," she says flatly. Judge Caprio raises a hand gently, quieting the room. But Daniel is not finished. He then explains that he recognized Madison's last name on the citation. He admits he waited for this hearing because he feared that her influence would bury the incident. He feared no one would take the danger seriously because of who her father is. He feared the children's safety might be dismissed as an inconvenience. And that's when he speaks a line that pierces the room with quiet truth. "Your Honor, those children don't have power, they only have us." The courtroom falls silent once again. Even Judge Caprio takes a moment before responding. Madison opens her mouth to object, but the judge interrupts her with calm firmness. He asks Daniel a series of simple questions to verify the details. Every answer aligns perfectly with the written statement. As Daniel finishes, he steps back, breathing heavily, his duty fulfilled. He doesn't want revenge. He doesn't want headlines. He just wants the truth heard. A moment passes before the judge turns to Madison. He asks her if she has anything to say. Madison scoffs. "Yeah, this is ridiculous." "So a kid scraped her knee? Big deal. Kids fall all the time. Why is everyone acting like I committed some crime?" Murmurs scatter across the courtroom. A mother shakes her head in disbelief. An elderly man whispers something under his breath. Even the court clerk glances down, unable to hide discomfort. Madison continues, growing bolder. "This is all blown out of proportion. My dad donates to schools. He donated computers last year, so technically I help kids more than that guy does." A sharp inhale sweeps across the benches. The arrogance hangs heavy, thickening the air. At this point, one question begins to linger in every listener's mind. How far can someone go before they finally realize the world doesn't revolve around them? Judge Caprio remains composed, but there is steel in his voice now. He explains to Madison that the details in Daniel's statement carry serious implications. He reminds her that safety zones exist to protect children who trust adults to make responsible decisions. Madison shrugs again, but there's a tiny crack in her confidence. The judge requests that the clerk read the official incident report aloud, a request that sends a ripple of tension down the courtroom. Madison glances around, confused. To her, this is all unnecessary formality. But to everyone else, it's accountability finally taking shape. The clerk begins reading, the exact speeds, the approximate distance between Madison's car and the children, the witness descriptions from parents who reported the near miss, the small child who fell and cried, the recorded estimate showing Madison's car was moving nearly 40 miles per hour in a 20 zone. Whispers spread around the room. Madison shifts uncomfortably. Her smirk fades slightly, her jaw tightens. The words paint a clearer picture than she ever intended to face. And as they do, the courtroom feels colder, heavier, more real. At around this moment, the narrator poses the required engagement device. Like this video, if you believe consequences should apply to everyone equally, no matter how wealthy they are. The clerk finishes reading. But then Judge Caprio asks for one more detail, the one many didn't know existed, the one that ties everything together, the one that reveals why Daniel Brooks looked so shaken that morning. He gently requests the report's addendum. The clerk hesitates for a moment, then begins reading the final line. It states that when Madison sped through the crosswalk, the student who stumbled was not just startled. She was recovering from a recent surgery, making her more fragile than any of the adults realized at the time. A wave of emotion breaks over the courtroom. Daniel wipes his eyes. Madison's frown deepens, not with guilt, but with confusion, as though she's only now realizing this situation has layers she never considered. The judge leans back slowly, preparing for the next stage of the hearing. But when the judge ordered one final detail to be read aloud, Madison's face drained of all color. The courtroom waits in heavy silence as the clerk prepares to read the addendum. Madison shifts her weight from one foot to the other, impatient, annoyed, convinced this is all beneath her. But beneath the irritation, something else flickers, uncertainty, the kind that slips through cracks even she didn't know she had. The clerk clears her throat and reads the last line of the report. The child involved, age 7, had been recovering from a recent heart procedure and had been cleared to return to school only days earlier. A stunned hush sweeps the courtroom. Madison's expression collapses for a breath, then rebuilds itself in seconds, like she's trying to force arrogance back into place. But it's too late. The impact of the detail rattles her. Daniel Brooks lowers his gaze, visibly shaken. A parent in the audience wipes tears from her eyes. The atmosphere shifts from tense to heart-wrenching. Judge Caprio gently asks the clerk if the child's family submitted a statement. The clerk nods. Yes, they did. The judge requests it be read aloud. Madison exhales sharply, as if this is all far too dramatic for her liking. She taps her manicured nails against the podium, muttering something about how people should relax. But then the statement begins. It's written by the child's mother, a single parent named Elise Harper. Her words are simple, trembling, full of raw emotion. She describes her daughter Lily, how brave she was through surgery, how she practiced walking again, how excited she was to return to school and see her friends. She explains Lily's fears, loud noises, fast movements, sudden surprises. And then the part that stings the room like a blade dipped in truth. Lily was terrified when Madison's car sped past. She thought she had done something wrong. She blamed herself for falling. She cried for hours, thinking the world was still too big and too dangerous for her tiny healing heart. A tear slips down Daniel's cheek. He turns away, attempting to hide the emotion. But the courtroom has already seen it. Madison's jaw tightens. She folds her arms again, almost hugging herself, a posture she hasn't taken since she was a child. For the first time today, she doesn't interrupt, she doesn't scoff, she doesn't argue. And for a split second, she looks shaken. As the letter continues, the mother reveals she had been afraid to send her daughter back to school. She worried Lily wasn't ready. But Lily insisted, saying she wanted everything to be normal again. And that morning, her first morning back, was when Madison sped through the crosswalk. The mother's voice, through the letter, ends not with anger but with a plea. Please remind young drivers that children are fragile, especially the ones who have already fought so hard just to be here. When the clerk finishes reading, no one moves, no one breathes. The room feels smaller, heavier, filled with an ache that wraps itself around every person present. Then, from the second row, a small sniffle is heard. Everyone turns. It's Lily's mother. She rises slowly, her hands trembling, and for the first time, she looks toward Madison. Her voice is soft. I don't want you punished out of revenge, she says. I just want you to understand that your choices matter. You scared my daughter. You could have changed our lives forever. I need you to know that. Madison's lips tremble almost imperceptibly. She quickly hides it by biting the inside of her cheek. In this moment, a single question fills the mind of every listener. What happens when someone who has never faced consequences is suddenly confronted with the weight of a real life they almost altered? Madison opens her mouth to respond, but her voice doesn't come out as strong as before. I didn't know, she mutters. Nobody told me about her. The mother nods. I know. But that's why you're here. To hear it. For the first time since entering the courtroom, Madison drops her gaze. The Louis Vuitton bag, the designer clothes, the perfect hair, none of it shields her from the truth closing in around her. Judge Caprio leans forward, his voice gentler now but firm with purpose. He asks Madison if she would like a moment to speak. Madison inhales slowly. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she says. I thought if I was late, my dad would be angry. I didn't think about the kids. Her words tremble with something unfamiliar, vulnerability. The judge nods. He asks her to continue. She swallows hard. I didn't know she was recovering from surgery. I didn't know. The mother nods again, but her eyes glimmer with something deeper. You don't need to know to be careful, she replies. Children shouldn't depend on luck. The courtroom stirs with emotion. Judge Caprio waits a moment, then gently asks the mother if she would like to say anything else. She hesitates, tears pooling in her eyes. Just that, I still believe people can change, even when they make terrible mistakes. The judge nods, honoring her courage. Madison wipes her cheek quickly, hoping no one noticed. But they did, and something begins to shift. A crack forms in the marble wall of entitlement she's spent years building. Her shoulders lower, her breathing slows. The judge then asks Madison if she understands the full gravity of what happened. This time she cannot fake confidence. Her voice softens. Yes, Your Honor. I understand now. A long silence follows. And in that silence, the narrator delivers the required engagement. Hit that subscribe button if you believe compassion is powerful enough to change even the coldest hearts. But the emotional peak is not over yet. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath and requests the bailiff bring forward the final part of the report, something only the court staff had been aware of. Madison lifts her head slowly, sensing a new wave approaching. Her fingers tighten around the edge of the podium. The judge's expression grows more serious than anyone has seen today, because the next detail isn't about witnesses, or the child, or the mother. It's about Madison herself. But just when it seemed Madison had reached her limit, Judge Caprio delivered a single sentence that shattered her world. The courtroom feels frozen as Judge Frank Caprio adjusts his glasses, folds his hands, and speaks with a calm that carries more weight than any raised voice ever could. Madison stands rigid at the podium, unaware of the emotional storm heading her way. The judge begins by explaining that, before every hearing, he reviews not only the citations, but also the notes filed by officers, court staff, and occasionally, when necessary, community members. Madison listens with shallow breaths, her eyes darting between the judge and the floor. Then the judge delivers the sentence that halts her heartbeat. Miss Vale, according to the report, this is not your first reckless incident involving a school zone. Gasps erupt across the courtroom. Madison's head snaps up. Her lips part in disbelief. What? She whispers. The judge continues, unshaken. 2 months ago, you received a warning for driving 33 in a 20-mile-per-hour school zone. You were let off with nothing more than a reminder to be cautious. Madison's face flushes with a mix of shock and fear. She had assumed her father handled that quietly, erasing the problem like he always did. She never expected the truth to circle back into the one room she couldn't control. Composure crumbles. The judge waits for the murmurs to fade. Miss Vale, he says slowly, this means you were aware of the rules. You were aware of the danger. And yet you still chose to ignore it. Madison opens her mouth, but no words come. The silence weighs on her chest. The judge then begins his speech, soft, steady, and powerful enough to silence every breath in the room. He explains that his courtroom is not a place to punish. It is a place to teach. A place to break cycles before they break people. A place where accountability can save lives, not ruin them. He tells Madison that privilege is not a shield, nor is money an escape hatch from responsibility. He says his duty is not only to uphold the law, but to protect the vulnerable, especially children who trust adults to make decisions that keep them safe. Madison's hands tremble. Each word lands like stone on her heart. Then the judge shifts his tone to something deeper, almost fatherly. He explains that he has met thousands of people in this courtroom who made terrible mistakes, but found redemption because they listened, learned, and took responsibility. He tells her that she too has a chance to change. But she must choose it. A question forms in the narrator's voice, hanging heavy in the room. What happens when life finally forces someone to face the very truth they've run from their entire lives? Madison's throat tightens. A tear forms but doesn't fall. Judge Caprio leans slightly forward. Miss Vale, entitlement is not strength. Humility is, and humility begins by accepting the consequences of our actions. Madison swallows hard. I understand, Your Honor. Her voice cracks, not from fear of punishment, but from the sudden realization that someone is demanding something from her she's never been asked for in her life. Growth. The judge nods calmly, allowing her words to settle into the quiet. Then he reads aloud the letters submitted by community members, parents, teachers, and even students who witnessed the speeding incident. Their words are simple, honest, and deeply human. A teacher writes about gripping the hand of a child who nearly stepped into the street. A father writes about the fear he felt watching a car race past the place his son stood. A student writes one line that hits Madison like a punch. I was scared you didn't care if we got hurt. Madison bows her head. The weight is becoming too much. The judge pauses, then says something that makes her breath hitch. Miss Vale, your life has been built on speed, but sometimes the most important lessons are learned when you come to a complete stop. The room grows still. Madison lifts her head slowly, her eyes glassy and unfocused. For the first time ever, she understands that her choices have shaped a world far bigger than her own. Judge Caprio continues his speech, speaking of responsibility, community, and the sacred duty adults have to protect children. His words weave through the air like a moral lighthouse, illuminating everything Madison has refused to confront. He reminds her that being late is not an excuse to endanger lives, that being wealthy does not mean being above others, that the value of a person is measured not by money or fame, but by the kindness they show when no one is watching. The room listens as if carved from stone. Then the judge speaks directly to Madison, his voice carrying decades of wisdom. "You said earlier that I was jealous of your lifestyle," he says. "Let me tell you something, Miss Vale. Jealousy has no place here. What I want, what I hope, is that one day you will be proud of the person you become, not the comfort you were born into." Something inside Madison breaks. Her shoulders slump. A tear slips down her cheek. The judge lets the silence hold her. Then, from the narrator, the engagement device emerges gently. "Drop a comment below if you believe true strength comes from owning your mistakes." Madison wipes her face, trembling. "Your Honor, I didn't realize. I didn't think. I'm sorry, I really am." Her apology is quiet, fragile, real. Judge Caprio nods, acknowledging the shift in her. But the lesson isn't over yet. He explains that understanding is only the first step. The second step is action. Madison nods repeatedly, unsure of what comes next. "I'll do anything," she whispers. "Just, please let me make this right." The judge glances down at his notes, and the courtroom leans forward. His next decision isn't just about punishment, it's about transformation. He lifts his gaze and prepares to reveal the consequence that will shape the rest of Madison's life. But Madison had no idea the judge was about to reveal the one decision that would change her entire future. The courtroom feels like it's holding its breath as Judge Frank Caprio prepares to deliver his decision. Madison Vale stands at the podium, mascara slightly smudged, hands shaking, her carefully built world of privilege suddenly looking small against the weight of what she's learned. The judge begins slowly, his voice steady, measured, and unshakable. "Miss Vale," he says, "if I follow the strict letter of the law, I could impose a heavy fine, suspend your license, and assign community service. Given your history, many would say that is exactly what you deserve." Madison swallows hard, her heart races. She braces herself for impact. "But," the judge continues, "this courtroom is not just about what you deserve, it is also about what you need in order to truly change." Madison looks up, confused. The judge explains that punishing her wallet will not teach her anything. Her family's wealth would erase the sting in minutes. A license suspension might inconvenience her, but it wouldn't reach the part of her that needs to grow, her heart. So instead, he lays out a different kind of sentence. First, Madison will pay a fine, but every cent of it will be directed into a special fund for child safety programs at Lily's school. She nods vigorously through tears. That part is easy. Money is the one thing she has never lacked. But then comes the real test. Second, Judge Caprio says, you will spend the next 6 Saturdays volunteering at that very school. You will assist staff during arrival and dismissal, standing at the crosswalk where Mr. Brooks and those children stand every day. Madison's eyes widen. "Every Saturday?" she echoes. "Yes, Miss Vale, every Saturday," the judge replies. "You will hold the signs, you will help guide children, you will look into the faces of the lives you once endangered, and you will protect them." The audience murmurs, softly. Madison nods through a fresh wave of tears. This isn't about image anymore, this is about facing, day after day, the reality she tried so hard to outrun. The judge continues. "Third, you will meet with Lily and her mother, only if they consent, to apologize personally. Not as a performance, not as a formality, but as a human being who understands the harm she might have caused." Madison glances toward Lily's mother, who is dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Their gazes meet. There is no hate in the woman's eyes, only pain and a fragile hope that maybe this experience will mean something. "And lastly," Judge Caprio says, his voice softening but growing even more powerful, "you will speak at 3 high schools about what you have done. You will stand in front of students your own age and tell them about the consequences of arrogance, distraction, and speed. You will use your story to protect them from becoming you on the worst day of your life." Madison inhales sharply. Public speaking, admitting fault, exposing her own ugliness. This terrifies her more than any fine, more than any suspension. But she knows, deep down, that this is exactly what she needs. "Yes, Your Honor," she whispers. "I'll do it. I'll do all of it." At this moment, the narrator's voice rises with gentle urgency. Hit that subscribe button if you believe real justice doesn't just punish, it transforms. Judge Caprio studies Madison for a long moment, then nods. Miss Vale, today you arrived in this courtroom believing you were above everyone else. You will leave understanding that you are responsible to everyone else. Her tears fall freely now. He continues. You once said I was jealous of your lifestyle. Let me be clear, I am not jealous of any life built on selfishness, but I would be proud of a life built on compassion, humility, and service. That is the lifestyle I hope you choose from this day forward. Madison's shoulders shake. I will, Your Honor, I promise. Then something unexpected happens. Lily's mother, Elise, slowly approaches the front. The judge allows it, nodding gently. She turns to Madison, her eyes red but kind. I accept your apology, she says softly. But more than your words, I'm going to be watching your actions. My daughter is brave. I hope you learn to be brave enough to change. Madison nods, struggling to speak. I will. I'll earn it. I'll prove it. From the back of the room, Daniel Brooks wipes his eyes. People crying for months he has carried the fear of that morning, wondering if anyone cared. Now he sees something he didn't expect, a spoiled teenager breaking down, not because she was caught, but because she was finally confronted with the truth. Judge Caprio brings the hearing to its formal close, but before the gavel drops, he offers one final message, not just to Madison, but to everyone in the courtroom, and to anyone listening to this story. Every person in this room, he says, has made mistakes, some big, some small. What defines us is not the mistake itself, but what we do after it. Miss Vale, your story does not end here. It begins here. The case is adjourned. In the days and weeks that follow, Madison's life changes in ways she never imagined. She stands at the crosswalk in a simple reflective vest, the sun on her face, holding a bright sign that tells drivers to slow down. Children walk past her every morning, some smiling shyly, some clutching backpacks, some skipping with joy. Madison greets them softly, learning their names, learning their stories. Daniel watches her at first with caution, but over time, as he sees her arrive early, stay late, and show genuine care, his suspicion begins to fade. One morning, he hands her a spare whistle and says, "You've earned this." It's a small gesture, but to Madison, it feels like the biggest honor she's ever received. She visits Lily at the school on a quiet afternoon. Lily is nervous at first, but Madison kneels to her level and apologizes with a sincerity that brings tears to Elise's eyes. They speak about bravery, about healing, about moving forward. Lily smiles faintly and says, "I'm glad you're helping now." Those words stay with Madison long into the night. At the high schools, Madison stands on gymnasium stages, her voice shaking as she describes her arrogance, her speeding, her cruel words to the judge. She tells students how close she came to changing a child's life forever, for the worst. Some students roll their eyes at first, the way she once did, but as her voice cracks with emotion, as she admits she was wrong, the room grows still. Afterward, students line up to talk to her. Some admit they've sped through school zones, some confess they've texted while driving. Madison listens to each one, urging them not to wait for a courtroom to wake them up. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, she starts becoming someone new. And back in Providence, Judge Frank Caprio moves on to other cases, other faces, other stories. But every so often, when he hears an update about the billionaire's daughter who once told him he was just jealous, he allows himself a small, quiet smile. Because he knows that, sometimes, the harshest words in his courtroom become the seeds of the greatest transformation. What began as arrogance turned into awareness. What began as selfishness turned into service. What began as a reckless moment on the road turned into a lifelong promise to protect others. But the real legacy of that day would live far beyond the courtroom walls.